Hello, 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 everyone. I am so pleased to introduce to you the famous gay icon, Mr. Arlen with Daddy's Barbershop, a thriving gay man, and spotlighting his success in working with me and the Gay Man Thriving Mastermind program. Arlen, I am so pleased to have you here with us today and just honored that you're willing to share a little bit about your journey. I'd love for you to please introduce yourself and can't wait to get started.
Hi, my name's Arlen Lassiter. I'm in Palm Springs, California, and I own a big famous barbershop called Daddy's that it's been around for about 18 years now. Started in San Francisco, opened one in Palm Springs, and opened one recently in Austin, Texas. And here I am with Mr. Zach.
Yes, here we are. Oh, Arlen, I just have to say, it's been such a joy working with you. I love seeing you showing up so full of life and full of energy today. And I think it's quite remarkable when I was looking back earlier at some of my notes when we had our very first conversation, and things would, I'd say, have changed quite a bit for you.
A little bit.
Several months, a little bit, right? Right. So yeah, so for those of you joining, please feel free to share comments, ask questions down below. Super excited to share this amazing transformation that Arlen has received in showing up and doing some uncomfortable work at times, but it's obviously paying off. And I want to share with you some of the steps that Arlen has taken to really overcome feelings of closed off. I remember when we first spoke, Arlen, you mentioned how hard it was to pull yourself out and be social, and acknowledging kind of bad attitude. You self-identified, I remember, as grumpy daddy, and we're feeling, feelings of bitterness. You didn't like where you were living, and a lot has changed since then.
A lot has definitely changed for sure.
Yeah. So I want to dive in and start with sharing your story, and I'd love to ask you if you could begin by sharing a little bit with us about what inspired you to seek higher level support with Gay Man Thriving.
So it's real interesting. I was laying on a beach in Maui by myself, and I was strolling through Facebook, and I saw this. I don't remember if it was an ad or if it was something about Gay Man Thriving or Gay Man Thriving, and I started investigating it. I started reading the all about it and what it was and what it could be and how it could help with my bitterness that I have been experiencing for a long time. And one of the biggest reasons for the bitterness is I lost a business in San Francisco due to COVID, and COVID changed my world completely. And also going through a divorce from a man I'd been with for 13 years wasn't a help either. And so laying on that beach by myself and reading about Gay Man Thriving, I'm like, oh my God, I bet these guys would be awesome to maybe help me out in some way. And that's where it all started, was in Maui.
Wow. Beautiful share. Yeah, I remember our very first conversation and seeing so much hope and potential in you, but I remember you had, described the trauma that you felt from losing what felt like a child, and so much energy you had put into building that business and starting over in a new place that didn't quite feel like home for you in Palm Springs. And navigating a lot of trouble with how COVID and the lockdown and all of that just really seemed to take a lot away from you. And I remember there were a lot of things that you were having a hard time just overcoming and picking yourself back up. And what would you say was some of the biggest things that you were really dealing with and struggling with when you were in that space of having lost so much and starting over? What was that like for you in that moment?
I was miserable. It was bitter daddy, grumpy daddy all the time. It was like nobody wanted to be around me. I'm in Maui. I'm on a beach by myself. I eat dinner by myself. I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I wasn't even going to the bars, for God's sakes. I was like unsocial completely. And I went from Mr. Socialite over the last 16 years in San Francisco, knowing everybody, couldn't walk down the sidewalk without getting stopped, to not knowing anyone and living in Palm Springs. And I would never, ever had any intentions of moving here full time because the summers are so extreme. But COVID changed that. And I had a business here that survived COVID. And that was the reason why I came down here. But I was still a grumpy old bitch. And I gotta say, for the last year that I've been working with Zach, or however long it's been, is truly like night and day. It really is. And I went from grumpy daddy to not being so grumpy anymore. But but it's been a lot of work. I have to say, it's been a lot of work, and I including everything that I wasn't doing before, I still do now. Like the journaling and the serenity prayers every night and morning, and the reaching out to people, like on the dating sites, and still swiping, and still getting rid of the guys that are fake, and not carrying on a conversation with a robot.
Right, because it's all out there. And
oh my God, it is. It's so bad.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no question, Arlen, you have come such a long way, and it's been such a joy just seeing you reach each new level of getting out of that dark place that you were in, where you were truly isolating yourself and feeling doubtful and really feeling hopeless and feeling discouraged. I remember you describing to me like how you knew your attitude needed to change, but you had lost so much and had dealt with so much, you didn't know how to pull yourself out of that dark place. And what was the initial progress that you were making? Like tell me a little bit about the transformation that's allowed you to get to this place today. What would you say are some of the things that within you were able to discover and learn to be able to create such a different life experience?
Well, it started with the online, the meetings, the group meetings, and being involved with that in the beginning. And I didn't, in the past, a lot in my life, I've always been in the back of the room, never raised my hand, none of that shit, never spoke up. And it was different for this because first off, I was paying for it, and second off, I'm going to raise my hand because, I'm if I don't engage, then what's the point? What's the point of giving all this money out if you're not going to engage in it, Right. And so I raised my hand every time in those group calls, and I spoke just about every single time in those group calls. And slowly but surely, that grumpiness slid to the wayside. It was truly amazing how the transformation started to happen, and I could see it, and so could other people.
Oh yeah. I bet. I mean, you're a business owner. I know that you have, and us working together have described a lot of things you're noticing about how people are responding to you differently. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Oh my God! So nobody wanted to really. Everybody was scared of me, scared to say anything to me. I mean, I really was just Mr. Grumpy all the time, and I hated living in Palm Springs. I don't know why I hated it so much, because it's a beautiful place, and it's so funny that I did hate it before Gay Man Thriving, and now I really like it. It's weird.
It's so weird.
I don't think that it had anything to do with where I was living,
Well, the cool thing, I mean, the reality is nothing about Palm Springs has changed at all. But
nothing.
You went from hating it to loving it and seeing how beautiful it is, and all the amazing people that you're allowing yourself to meet and connect with.
Yeah.
I mean, since the location didn't change, what did?
I did. I did. And it really does. I think it really makes a difference when you do simple things like do breathing techniques, a little bit of meditation here and there. And the journaling is probably the biggest change that I ever made. Mm-hmm. And I'm 63 years old, and I never have ever journaled. Mm-hmm. and I am almost finished with a whole book.
Love that. I love that so much. Yeah, so many things that you gave yourself permission to show up fully and to really step into this experience. Just like you said, determined to raise your hand on every group call, to share what you were experiencing, to be open to receiving feedback. That's hard when you're in a grumpy, like negative energy like that, but I saw the layers of that really shedding over time as you allowed yourself to show up and be seen and receive that laser focused guidance and support. And I'm so proud of you for the healthy habits, the foundational stuff, the journaling and the meditation and the mindset stuff, that foundational, those foundational processes is what's allowed you to be open to receiving and to seeing things a different way. Because that alone, that's helpful, but the real magic happened when, you would bring things to these calls and be open to seeing things a different way. Would you like to share a little bit about the experience with, we won't say his name, but the guy in Los Angeles who you were so sure had basically dumped you for your HIV status? Would you
so like that was an interesting, he's a 32 3-year-old, something like that, and he's a really nice guy, but the conversations were constantly about sex. sex that's what he wanted, and I was willing to give it at the moment for sure. And the conversations were going amazingly well until I mentioned that I was HIV positive, and it completely halted. And it was like the conversation came to a complete stop.
Yeah. And what was your initial interpretation of that?
Well, it was the stigma still exists. Yeah. And the stigma does still exist. There's a lot of people out there that need to get educated on HIV and what it means in today's world. And I completely, there was no response from him, and I'm like, fuck you, you're just another one that needs to go get educated. And I stopped it too.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, maybe you can remember for me, but it was either him or me. I think it was me, because you were saying you wanted to know what was said in those last conversations.
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, he doesn't want to have anything to do with me again, period.
Right.
And I think it was me that reached out to him after several weeks.
Yeah.
Said hi.
Yeah, I remember our initial call where you were like, Zach, it fucking happened again. Another guy ghosted me and is judging me. You wouldn't fucking believe it, for my HIV status. And I, wanted to explore it with you because it was something that seemed to be, upsetting and triggering. And as an HIV positive man, I remember what it was like to feel rejected for that. So it brought up a lot of the same stuff that I had faced. But I could tell that it was something that was bothering you. And so
because it's been 30 years.
Yeah, right.
30 years. And so back in the day, when I first got infected, everybody around me was dying. And I would never have sex with somebody without saying that I'm positive, just a FYI.
Yeah.
But in today's world, it's a whole different world with PrEP, and I am healthy as an ox.
Yeah.
I'm healthier today than I was 30 years ago. So, but that kind of feeling that you get when you're rejected, because of your status, still exists in me today. Even though I shrug it off and say, "You fucker," next, who's next? But it's still a feeling,
Absolutely. We all have those triggers, those fears, those sensitive topics that when we perceive ourselves being rejected, it bubbles to the surface as, oh, well, that's why. And you guys had just been talking about it. And I remember when we took a closer look at the message, there was some, a little bit of awkwardness, and that's where the conversation ended. But
he actually had told me that he had never ever been with somebody HIV positive, and
right.
My guess is like he probably has, he just didn't realize it. But in the end, you know, when I did reach out to him again just to say hi, his response was, "Oh my God, how are you? And I've talked to my doctor about getting a breath."
Right, right. And I'm so glad that we talked, because you were not gonna respond. You
I
were like,
wasn't.
he was like cut off,
I
done.
was
It was,
done.
and I bring this up because this is what so many gay men do. They interpret a situation and they think that that's just the way it is, and then they kind of close themselves off. And you were on the brink of doing that. And
Right.
I'm so glad that, you know, we took a closer look, and I encourage you to reach back out, that there was in fact nothing to lose by reaching back out to this guy. And lo and behold, he was excited to connect with you. And I hear he's been like sending you lots of messages, trying to, you know, continue where things left off. And so what did you, you know, big picture, like what did you learn from that experience about, you know, interpretations and mindset?
Don't act before you know completely.
Right.
Basically, I mean,
Yeah.
it was really it was really an act of my past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
is what that was, you know.
To me, it was, yeah, another opportunity for you to shed an old behavior of making a snap judgment, making an interpretation, and then closing yourself off to something out of an energy of protection and avoidance of discomfort.
That's
But
right.
I'm so glad that you gave yourself permission to explore with curiosity and without attachment. And yeah, and you realize that that initial snap judgment was actually inaccurate. And that's so important for all of us to recognize, because we can all so easily fall into that trap of avoiding old, you know, old wounds from being, you know, relived or re-experienced, that pain. And so I love that you were able to learn how to question your thoughts more, question your interpretations, not let yourself go to making assumptions
Right.
that history is going to repeat itself. Because when we open ourselves up to new possibilities, which I see you doing so much, it's just creating a whole new world for you. And the same can be, go ahead.
I just assumed that was the problem.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, I love that you had that powerful experience and were able to learn that lesson. Because if we assume things are always going to be the way they are, guess what happens? They remain the same, because it's not until we change the way we look at things, you know, for the things we look at to change. Where you're living, for example, you know, I remember we talked a bit about this already, but yeah, you saw Palm Springs as a place that just didn't feel great for you. It felt like no opportunities. You'd go out to the bars and you wouldn't connect with people. It seemed like never finding what you were quite looking for. And now, you know, based on our conversations, I hear you're chatting with guys all the time and exploring the beautiful environment.
Even went on a lunch date yesterday with another one.
Awesome. How did that go?
It was really nice. It was really nice. I asked him what he did for a living, and his response was that he was an Episcopal priest. And my response was, "Holy shit."
Of course it was. Of course it was.
And he laughed at that, which was
I love that. I love that.
He was a super nice guy, and he just moved to Palm Springs.
Yeah. And I love how, you know, after working together, you've, you know, not let, you know, there's a lot of challenges with gay dating. There's no question about it. It's tough. On the dating apps, there's going to be, you know, the same kind of robotic scammers that have the same kind of "are you gay man" kind of questions. And then, you know, at some point they're going to try to hit you up for money. You know, I know that used to be a bit of a frustration and barrier, but what have you learned about how to navigate those situations?
I just don't let it get to that.
Right.
I just don't let it get to that. I used to engage.
Yeah, right.
You know, conversations for weeks with these guys that had no intention of ever, you know, meeting me or going on a date.
Right.
Funny, and it still happens. It's
we can't, there's no like filter for that. But I think not only, you know, avoiding them, like avoiding letting it get to you, I think is probably the biggest thing, because it's just kind of like, it's like a bump in the road, and you just sit there and stare at it and think, this fucking bump, and like let it block you. or you can drive right past it with keeping your eye on the prize. And with your increase in high vibrational energy, with your increase in a positive attitude, I mean, tell us a little bit about some of the things you're experiencing now that you're opening yourself up. I mean, I hear you've been invited on stage at events. You're being invited to events. You're like, I mean, you're meeting people that you're cutting hair, and you're just so charismatic and outgoing. Like, people are just like drawn to you like a magnet. Tell us a little bit about what that feels like.
I was at Kink Week in Austin, Texas, and I went to I was invited. I was cutting this guy's hair, and he was a filmmaker, and he was he had done this film, and he was showing it that night, and he invited me to it, and the name of the film was called Manscaping, and I'm in the hair business, so it was like, I bet you that could be interesting. And so I went to it just being a guest, you know, and there were a few people that I knew there from San Francisco, and there was probably 200 or 300 people in the audience. And before the film started, the MC says, "So we have a guest in the audience tonight. It's Arlen Lassiter from Daddy's Barbershop." And I'm like, "Oh no, my God, they're gonna put me in the spotlight."
Right.
And then I'm like, I just like waved, you know, and everybody waved back to me, and then about 20 minutes later, the MC is still speaking, and he goes, you know, how would it be if we get Arlen Lassiter up on stage and talk about Daddy's Barbershop?
Hell yeah.
And I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah. I mean,
and so I did, and I got up on stage, and he handed me the mic, and I basically told him what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today, all in about 90 seconds.
I love that so much for you. And it's like, looking back, you know, when he was sitting in the, you know, getting his haircut, it's like, what about you created this experience? Because I imagine Grumpy Daddy from 8 or 9 months ago with the negative attitude probably wouldn't have sparked that whole chain of events. So what about you made that situation so successful?
I think it's all the work I've done with Gay Man Thriving is what it boils down to, you know, and again, the journaling every day has got to be, it's just like getting the shit that's in your head out on paper.
Yeah. Yeah. And how was that all the work that you've done? Because there's so much that you've done in the last several months, you know, that helped contribute to that moment. Like, what in that moment about you do you think allowed you to show up in such a way where you got that invitation that had made such an impression you would get called up on stage later? Like, you know, and I imagine, instead of a grumpy kind of like closed off person, like, how were you able to show up in that moment?
I was just present. I was completely present.
Yeah.
And as much as a lot of times I don't like being in the spotlight, but it was a moment that was handed to me, and it was either do or die. Yeah. And I was just present. I was completely present. And the words just flowed out of my mouth.
Yeah.
It just did. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And even when I sat back down, the guy sitting next to me says, "Wow, that was awesome."
Oh, yeah, man. I love that so much.
And I also, on top of all that, I got so many clients from just doing that the very next day.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I have no doubt about it. And it's just, this is what happens when you allow yourself to increase your energetic vibration. I mean, you were operating at such a high vibe, and that's a big part of it. We're so present and in the moment when we're not letting all the mental clutter and the doubts and the discouragement. I hate where I'm working. I hate where I live. Things don't go my way kind of energy. Like, we're closed off, and that guy probably couldn't wait to get out of the chair. But instead, you were present, you were engaging. I know we've been talking a lot about, you know, having conversations that spark joy. You're asking people, you know, like, what the exciting things they're doing this weekend. Like, you're just giving yourself permission to operate in such a magnetic, just energizing way. It just draws people to you. And
it's the way it used to be. So it used to be like that.
Yeah.
I would constantly have people say, "You have such amazing energy."
Yeah.
until COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
all that energy that I used to have went to the wayside, and
Yeah.
Grumpy Daddy came to the surface.
Right. And started
Grumpy
pushing people
Daddy was
away.
there for about 3 years until I met you.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad. Oh, I'm so glad we found each other, Arlen. I'm so glad that you have done this work and you rediscovered those magnetic qualities, and that you're just finding yourself moving forward in such a beautiful way. Because not only are you having these, career opportunities and things, your personal life is also taking a completely different
Oh
turn.
my God, I got another date tonight.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
With another guy.
Yeah, and I love in doing our work, like there's been some big revelations about, things that weren't quite working, kind of ways that, you had been going about things, and I love that you've realized that where things seem to be really geared towards sex, and that was kind of the way the conversation started and the way they kind of ended. And I remember you sharing with me that just wasn't as fulfilling as what you were really looking for. Tell us a little bit about what that transformation was like for you. And
So the deal is that, when I was in my 20s or 30s or even 40s, and hooking up with complete strangers was easy. And the sex was awesome. Most of the time it was hot. I had no problem getting erections because I was way younger. I'm 63. That's not the same. And so it's hard. Don't get me wrong. I love sex. I do. But to hook up with a stranger now is not what I'm really looking for. I'm really looking for a connection, and the chemistry has to be there. And there's got to be some type of connection and chemistry. It really does, for me to perform the way I want to perform. And so I've kind of like stayed off of Scruff. I've stayed off of the sex sites and gone on to the just the dating sites, that aren't just strictly about sex. Because that's not exact. I mean, I want sex, trust me, but I want it with somebody that I care about.
Yeah.
And that cares about me.
Yeah.
Right.
And how has that transition been like for you? Because I know there were some adjustments with, updating the way you're describing yourself on.
Oh my God. So it was like so my profiles were a little bit needed a little help.
Yeah.
And that's where you came in. Show me what your profile looks like. I'm sure you laughed to yourself.
I was like, I see why these conversations are all about sex.
Right.
We'll just keep it at that.
Right.
And so I just love how open you were when you recognized like your desires were out of alignment with kind of what was happening and what seemed to be continuing the pattern, and recognizing like I'm bored with all these conversations that are just about hookups and people just wanting, daddy.
Right.
I love that you've let yourself have that openness to really explore like how to create more of an emotional connection so that you can have that amazing passion and intimacy that's so much more connected and so much more powerful, and giving yourself permission to be okay with having more authentic conversations about what you're really wanting. What's that been like for you?
It's been amazing, actually. It's been amazing. There's no pressure of performing like that, where take your clothes off and your dick should get hard like that.
I
don't have to do that.
I
have to do that now.
I
mean, I never have to do it, but you know what I mean? It's like
right.
Being on the spot in the middle of a sexual whatever. I don't have to do that anymore.
You don't. And I love that you're giving yourself space to, really tell people what you're really looking for. Even, that conversation with the guy that we were talking about, where it was all about sex, like kind of setting the tone, like, hey, like this is really more what I'm wanting. And, if you're up for that, cool. If not, wish you all the best. But just giving yourself that space to be authentic, to be present, to really explore creating what you want. Like that is like the theme. And like, that's what I see you experiencing so fully right now. And it's just so awesome to see you connecting with so many amazing people and having such rich experiences. And the only thing that's changed is you, is your mindset, your openness to learning new things and putting it into practice. It has been hard work, but has it been worth it?
Oh, hell yeah. It's definitely been worth it. And I am not, even driving to work and dealing with the old people of Palm Springs and how slow they are, used to irritate the shit out of me constantly. And I don't get irritated anymore with them. I just got to work,
Yeah.
But, it's nice to be centered a little bit more, and not let somebody who's driving slow bother me.
Right.
Yeah, it's
You've
so
learned,
petty. It's so petty. It's like,
it is.
Why are you getting your blood pressure up over somebody else's driving?
Right. I know that's another big thing we've worked on is you feeling more peace and more calmness and less stress, because I mean it has major consequences when we let ourselves go to those places often. They're not paying the price. We might be mad at them for driving slow, honking and screaming, but we're only harming ourselves.
That's right.
And I'm so glad that you've learned that and that you're experiencing so much more peace and calmness. You're navigating, all the, things about being a business owner that can cause like chaos and like the unpredictability, and like you maintaining such a cool, like calm, like neutral energy is what's allowing you to see the opportunities, to find the solutions, and not only create more success for you, but also create a much more positive experience for all of your employees who are now no longer afraid of you.
Right.
Yeah. What's the work environment been like for you?
Oh, it's totally fine here. I haven't been to Austin lately. I'm going next week though, but it's completely fine here. We all get along well, and the business has slowed down because summer's here now, but it's a positive atmosphere.
Yeah, and you've created that. Like, we can't change other people, but we can have a big influence on other people's experience. And especially when you're the business owner and you're able to raise your energy, you're able to operate from a place of confidence and power and more light and love. I mean, everybody feels it around you, and it helps raise their vibration. Like, there's this trickle down effect. And so you doing this work, Arlen, has had a positive impact not only on your life, but everyone who gets to interact with you.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Everybody gets to interact. Like, what happened to you?
Right. Well, it's been a beautiful journey, and I'm so proud of the progress that you've made.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your story with us. It's inspiring for others to really hear what's possible when we learn how to get the fuck out of our own way. We learn how to see things from a different perspective. When we challenge ourselves and step into a new way of being, then we really do create a whole different life experience. And really,
and the worst I will say to all the listeners out there, the worst place that you can hang out is right between here.
Yeah.
By yourself. If you're by yourself and you're hanging out here, it's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
And it is well worth the investment to change.
Yeah. Because you were doing your best. I mean, you didn't want to be in that negative funk. You didn't want to be.
This wouldn't go away though.
I mean, you were trying. You were going to the bars, like you were trying to get out of the house, but like that negative energy was going there with you, and so that affected your conversations and experiences.
Right.
And so honoring you for making that decision, because that's one of the hardest steps for most people, is deciding, hey, I want to do something about this, and then actually doing something about it. Resigning to, hey, I don't know how to get out of this mess myself. I see this opportunity. I'm worth it. I'm going to take it. Arlen, what would you say to other men who might be in a similar situation to where you were, 9 months ago, who are wanting to make some changes, but they just don't know how, or they're afraid to invest? They don't know what to do. What would you say to those men who are struggling?
I would say the best thing that you could do for yourself, if were a grumpy old bitch like me, is to do your homework, investigate Gay Man Thriving, look at the reviews, look at the remarks from people that have been involved in this, and invest in the beginning in the group. Their group was great. I also did, one-on-one with Zach for quite a while. That also was amazing. If you want to change, it's the first step you take is a phone call.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, Arlen. Your transformation is truly inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. And as Arlen just shared, if there are any listeners who can identify with this story, with Arlen's experience, and wish to experience similar transformations, I do invite you to join the July round of Thriving Gay Man Mastermind. And by applying now, you can really take advantage of some amazing bonuses. And I would love to offer you a complimentary call to really explore if this is the right step for you. As Arlen shared, the first step is just scheduling that call. And I would love to explore if this is a good fit for you, and if you can have the same type of positive experience that Arlen has described today. Arlen, it's been such a joy working with you and witnessing this powerful transformation. I often tell my clients, other than my marriage with Andrew and prioritizing my life and my happiness, nothing brings me more joy than working with gay men like you who are feeling stuck, who want something different, don't know how to get it, and helping you achieve that next level of thriving. And you are a success story. I hope you were so proud of yourself, because at the end of the day, like, you're the one who did the work. You're the one who showed up on the calls. You're the one who invested in yourself and raised your hand to get that support and receive it. And so I am so proud of you. And I hope you are thrilled with how far you've come.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for all your help. It's been quite a journey.
It has indeed. And it's just and just so much more greatness to come. Like, when we learn how to reach this place and we know how to maintain it just as you are, it's just really like the world becomes your oyster. It's a playground to have fun and experience and be present. And
right.
I'm so glad that you found that spark, you regain that confidence, and you're creating so much joy in your life.
It's Arlen, cool. I like it. So thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for sharing today. And for those of you watching, feel free to send Arlen a message. He is an amazing man, and we're all so proud of him here at Gay Man Thriving. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks.